fans. This is Batman.
And Robin, the Boy Wonder.
And me too, Batmite.
Welcoming you to the new adventures of Batman. Watch us wage our never-ending battle of good versus evil.
Ride with us as we chase the greatest array of villains the world has ever seen, proving that crime does not pay.
Get set for thrills and action. Join me, Batman.
And me, Robin the Boy Wonder.
And Batgirl. And me too, Batmite.
In the super new adventures of
Batman.
Welcome back, citizens, to an all-new episode of the Batcave podcast. It's your old bat chum, John S. Drew here, and we're back once again with another look at a Filmation 1977 Batman animated episode. And, of course, in order to do that justice, I need my old chum from another layer coming out to visit me here in the Batcave, the man himself from Comic Book Central, Mr. Joe Stuber. Hey, Joe.
Well, John, you want to know what I think?
What do you think?
You want to know what I think?
What do you think?
But do you want to know what I think?
I want to know what you think, Joe.
I think this is going to be another silly episode.
It's going to be
it's a lot of Batmite, a lot of Batgirl, a lot of Catwoman. Clayface shows up. I'm just glad you and I get together again. I don't know. It's just, you know what? It's the pandemic. It's everything going on. I'm glad we're together.
I am. I am.
This feels good.
Yes, it does. And we've got a good episode here, like you mentioned, Catwoman. Now, as many of you know, we have a guest here. Well, you don't know we have a guest until you actually listen here, but we have a guest here who, as you will recognize the voice as soon as I introduce him here, but he is a longtime fan of Batman himself and also a big Catwoman fan. So this is why he wanted to come on. And originally we were going to try and get him on for the other Catwoman one, but I screwed that up. That was all my fault. And so to make it up, we've got him here. And actually,
you pulled a Batmite.
I pulled a Batmite. All I wanted to do was help, and I messed it up. But you know him, you love him, you can't live without him. He's from 13thdimension.com. Everybody, welcome back to the Batcave for a Filmation 77 review after all the 68 ones we did. Mr. Dan Greenfield. Hey, Dan.
Hey, guys. I feel like it's like after MASH. It's like a returning character on a different show, but it's still the same show.
Wait a minute. Compared to After MASH?
Well, hey, what can I tell you? But no, I appreciate you having me on. This is something, just to lift the veil a little bit, the bat veil, if you will, is that, John and I, of course, were doing the 68s, and we did all of them. And originally, we were talking about doing the 77s. I'm like, no, I have no interest in doing the 77s. The Batmite thing is too much for me to handle. And he's like, okay, it's fine. I got, Joe Stuber is going to do it. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Of course, as far as we start going and really get going on 68, I'm like, I don't want to stop. I want to do 77. But of course, John had already made his agreement with Joe. So I'm like, well, let me at least do one. Let me at least do one because I want to at least compare and contrast the two series. In particular, as anybody who listened to those shows, and John knows for sure, is that one of my greatest disappointments about the 68 show, which I love, is their handling of Catwoman. So I wanted to come on and talk about a Catwoman episode because that was one of the major changes they made between the two shows.
I think you're also going to find this was a better episode anyway for you because there's a lot more elements of this episode that go right up your alley there, Dan.
Oh, yeah. They definitely do.
The last one was really weird.
Yeah, it was. I still enjoyed it, and it was good. It was good.
Weird.
Now, this one, I'm going to put it out there. I could almost see this being an episode of the 66 series. Almost.
Oh well, I think that. I mean, I think I'll put it this way. I think everything but the Batmite stuff works, and that's just my blanket. I mean, even when I was a kid, I mean, I think this is probably the first Batman show I ever watched in first run, because the first Filmation and the Batman 66 were both in syndication, when I was growing up in the 70s. Joe, I'm not sure how old you are. John and I are about the same age. So I watched these when they were on, on Saturday morning TV, and I couldn't stand Batmite then, but I still liked the show. And I liked this episode. I actually got a kick out of it. I thought it was a weird pairing of Catwoman and Clayface of all characters, but still, I thought that it was entertaining at the very least.
Now, John and I have talked about this before. This, again, I'm very similar. This was, I'd seen the Batman 66 series in syndication, obviously, every day. So I got episodes every day. Sure. But then Saturday morning, this was me sitting down with the bowl of Captain Crunch in my jammies, watching this play out in real time. I was like 9 or 10, and it's like, it's the same voices, it's the same guys, and I liked Batmite. I think, John, you and I have talked about this. I think I'm okay with a lot of these kind of characters, Wonder Dog or Gleek. I think the only one I didn't like was Scrappy Doo, and I think that's universal.
Yeah,
all the others I'm okay with. And as you go through the series, and Dan, you'll look. I don't know how many of these you watched right now. I think you'll start to appreciate Batmite more, and this is a safe place for Batmite fans. This is a safe place.
I know that. I'm not gonna spend my time bemoaning his appearance or any of that. Stuff.
You might get roughed up. You might get a little roughed up.
I don't want that. No. Well, if it's a safe space, I should be able to respectfully
fair point,
dissent.
Fair point.
But anyway, no, I appreciate. One of the things. It's funny because after I listened to the first episode that you guys did, and John can attest to this because we talked about this. I said this was perfect. I never should be doing the 77 show because you guys are handling it in exactly the way it should be handled, and you are taking it on its own terms. And as anybody who listens to our John and my, we do the Super Friends podcast, I have the same problem with Wonder Dog. And I do, when we get to the point where we were talking about Gleek, I have less of a problem with Gleek than I do with Wonder Dog. But my son and I even debate the whole merit of the whole animal/alien sidekick or whatever. And to me, it comes down, there's only two that work. And I know we're getting off point already, but Tusky the Walrus rocks. And from the Superboy cartoons, of course, Crypto, who's really the ultimate, animal sidekick. But the rest
of them, these are deep discussions you're having with your son. That's
I know, right? Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. These are the things. Well, during a pandemic, like you say, we watch actually Filmation just about every night just to chill, and we've been watching the whole Superman run, and we've been watching the Superboy episodes, and they are such a scream, compared to so much of the rest of the Filmation. But anyway, yeah, even no matter what you feel about Batmite, there's a lot to appreciate with the 77 series that I kind of took for granted, especially while watching this in preparation for this episode. And the main thing is, I think the look of the show is terrific. I think that the cityscapes, that the level of animation, they of course use the stock footage like they used to, but not nearly to the same extent as they did. But I have my quibbles as well. I still will always say that Casey Kasem and Olan Soule are the better Batman and Robin for voice acting, but you can't help but be charmed and to be drawn in by the fact that it's Adam West and Burt Ward. But really, to me, the big difference for this particular episode is the fact that this is a Catwoman I actually like.
Yeah. You've been very vocal on 6, and rightfully so. I didn't care for her. I also didn't care for her portrayal, and not just the voice. I just didn't think she worked at all as a villain in that series, except for the one that you and I both like from Catwoman with Love.
Yeah, but I did though. I did think she didn't have the Julie Newmar. I mean, they weren't going to sex her up or anything like that for children's TV, but they didn't have anything that made her cat-like other than name and gimmick. Mm-hmm. However, what I always appreciated about her on the original show, or the Filmation original show, was that she was the smartest of all the villains. Anytime she teamed up with one of the other villains, she always had the upper hand. She was always one step ahead. So I always appreciated that. But, I was never a huge fan of the green outfit, which, of course, was the comic book outfit at that time, that short-lived green outfit. But really, to me, it was just the shrill voice, everything about her was just got under my skin. And I love Catwoman. Catwoman is one of my all-time favorite comics characters. But this one, I like the outfit. I like the voice. She does have the occasional moment where she lapses into sounding like Jane Webb's Catwoman when she meows or when she, she laughs a little bit. But for the most part, she's got the perfect voice, that kind of purring voice that you want from a Catwoman.
And you didn't think it weird that the color scheme was orange?
Not at all. It's at the time I did, but in retrospect, it kind of makes more sense certainly than a green cat. A brown and orange cat actually exists in nature, but a green and white cat does not. So when you think about Catwoman's, classic outfit is purple and green. I mean, it's to me, I liked it because it's so different than anything else you saw. It actually reminds you of Catman's costume. And there was a point during the Norm Brayfogle years in Detective Comics where he had Catman wearing a very similar outfit with the lion head on his chest and the same color scheme, that orange and brown, And I like that this is a little bit different than what we're expecting. When they talk cat, you traditionally think that she's thinking, house cat. But here it's like big cat. It's a lioness, it looks like, on her chest.
Jungle
and so,
cat.
yeah, so it's a little bit different. It's a subtly different take. It doesn't make a difference in terms of her personality, but it's like, okay, I kind of like this. And I thought to myself, I wouldn't mind seeing this in the comic books at that time. I mean, it's definitely a better outfit than Pirate Catwoman, and it's a better outfit than Green Catwoman. Green Catwoman was basically the Batman 66 outfit, but they colored it green, to avoid, rights issues. But I think it's a perfectly fine outfit. Or maybe I'm a sucker for white boots. I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's the Nancy Sinatra fan in me. I can't. Who knows?
Well, let me quickly. The episode where I said is Curses Oiled Again, written by our pals Chuck Menville and Len Jansen, March 17th, 1977. And as you mentioned, there is something odd about Catwoman teaming up with Clayface of all people. And this is the first time we're getting Clayface. And what's interesting is they don't waste any time. It's not the two meet and they quibble over how the arrangement is going to work like we see sometimes with some of these team ups in the cartoons and stuff. It's like, no, they're off to work already stealing the oil. And I want to just get quick thoughts from both of you. We don't hear Clayface speak. He doesn't say a word. It's just she tells him to activate the device or whatever, and off they go. And they cut to that shot of him there. What did you think? Because that was our first look at Clayface. Maybe for me, I know I hadn't seen him in the comics yet, so that was my Clayface.
What about you, I think it was just cool to see him show up. I always like supervillain team-ups. I mean, you think about the Batman movie, the feature film with Adam and Burt. You had the team-ups with the supervillains. I always liked the episodes where they kind of got together. So, again, I don't think you really, as a kid, again, this is geared toward, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds at the time. I don't need to know why they got together. I don't know. They met up somewhere in the supervillain bar or whatever, and, the hangout, whatever lair, and they got together. And this puts us square in the 70s. The energy crisis. I think, John, you and I have talked about this before, I think on a previous episode too. It's like, they're like, how can we generate different energy? How can we capture energy? How can we steal energy? This was so on the minds of everybody in the 70s. You watch it now and it's like, why are they stealing oil? And that's kind of a messy thing. And she's got all this tricked out equipment. She could probably sell a lot of this stuff and make even more money. But, in 1977, this was the thing. So I kind of dug that they went on a deep cut on one of these supervillains with Clayface.
Yeah, I thought what I like about it is the fact that it was a character that we hadn't seen yet in the cartoons or in any way. He wasn't on the TV show, the live action show. We hadn't seen him in the cartoons. And so I like the fact that they brought one of the, B-list, I guess, is a better, is not a bad way of describing Clayface. But the interesting thing about Clayface is that this Clayface also hadn't been in the comics for like 15 years. By the time that in 1977, they introduced the third Clayface, which was written by Len Wein and illustrated by Marshall Rogers toward the end of 1977, early 78. But this shape-shifting Clayface, the one, Matt Hagen from the early 60s, hadn't been seen. He pretty much had been written out of Batman about 15 years before. So why they decided to reach back for Clayface of all figures, I don't know, but it works because it is the type of character that works really well in animation. But as far
doesn't he seem like a good henchman, like her henchman, somebody she could order around a little bit too?
Yeah, he seems like he's the muscle.
Yes.
And she's
the brains, he's the brawn.
She's the brains, he's the brawn. And if you didn't know that the two of them, if you didn't know anything about Clayface, and this was your first experience, you might have thought, oh, okay, Clayface, and he works for Catwoman, because it's sort of the way that this plays out. But I like the fact that he's there. It helps make this series special compared with the 68 series for sure.
It's interesting, too, though, because, like you say, he's the muscle. Because I did notice that having the two of them there, they didn't need to bother with any other sidekicks, or goons, right, or to bounce things off, because she's talking now to Clayface here. And as we'll see when we get to the end, she double crosses him and runs off when things get too hot.
Well, that always happens. I mean, that's how they all lose. Every time they all start sniping at each other, or they double cross each other, which is why, all right. And we're going to get to this, I don't know, probably by the year 2026 at the rate we're going, John. But when we get to the Legion of Doom, the thing about the Legion of Doom is that I never could think of the idea that these self-serving villains could ever last more than 5 minutes in the same place without wanting to kill each other. They're sociopaths. The idea that they could actually ally themselves, especially when from such different backgrounds and different power sets. I mean, why would anybody else want the Joker in the room? Nobody would want the Joker in the room. Everybody would. I mean,
he's always going to turn on you.
Yeah, he's all right. You know what's going to happen. So why even bother? But it is fun to see the team ups, because that plays to the best parts of these shows. And as I've said in other contexts, one of the things that I loved about Filmation 68 and what I do appreciate about Filmation 77 is that this was also, because I saw the first series in syndication, this was the Mego era of action figures. And so even if you didn't have a Clayface or whatever, I used to improvise and have different characters, but you always had your villains teaming up. That's what you did. It was part of playing in the backyard. It was part of playing with your Batcave on the floor. So villain team-ups were like a regular thing. You didn't see them as often on the 66 show because they were special, because they had to arrange for the actors and what have you. But animation, it's not a problem. So I appreciate when they have episodes where it's one villain, but I also like those when they team up. This was a weird team up just because of the characters, but it was still fun to see.
Were you disappointed that all he did, though, was change into animals? Going back to Super Friends, I started thinking of Zan.
Better than a bucket of water.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, Jaina. That's right. Jaina was the animal.
Jaina, right. Yeah. No, that didn't really bother me. I was okay with that. I mean, the whole thing about, and you talk about someone who thinks about it too much sometimes. The whole idea of the shapeshifter is always a kind of a strange thing anyway, because how do they really emulate the clothes and the color changes and all that sort of stuff? So even like Beast Boy or Changeling and turning into all these different animals, I've always thought it's an interesting power, but it's not a power I necessarily relate to. So I didn't really care how they portrayed him in that way. I'm not married to one idea or the other. It's just kind of is what it is.
There were elements of this episode, like I say, reminded me like this could be a 66. And then there were ones that were clearly cartoonish, whether it was when they're collecting the oil, they just put it in this abandoned building and you can see the rising of the oil per floor as the windows fill up with oil, or the bit with, and I thought this was great, it was right out of 66, the slot car races with Bruce and Dick.
Eat your heart out, Dickie boy. There's no way that jalopy of yours can beat mine.
Don't count your chickens yet, Bruce. Hiya, Cape Crew. Batmite, look out! Yikes!
Doing the slot car races, and then Batmite goes through the tunnel, and when he comes out of a tunnel, because he's on one of the cars, he's in the shape of the tunnel.
Shape of the tunnel.
I can't stop it!
Looks like Batmite won by the seat of his pants, Dick.
Bruce, the bat signal.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Did you guys have those slot car races? Did you have those when you were kids?
Yes.
Well, I didn't have slot car races. I did have Hot Wheels and that sort of thing.
I had the slot cars. You put the oil on, and you could smell the oil coming off the track. Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I was always intrigued by that, but it was just not something like, we never, for whatever reason, maybe my mom or my dad thought it was going to be too much of a hassle, and they're like, no, forget that. Give him another Mego, he'll be quiet, which was true. Get even the Mego Batcopter. I mean, that's it's basically a clog with a propeller on it. But boy, I didn't care. It was Mego. I wanted it. But of course, as soon as you see him playing the slot cars, it's the Glacier Glades episode, right?
Yes,
it's the third Mr. Freeze episode.
Yes, it is the very last scene of the third season or the second season. Yeah.
But what about Bruce calling him Dickie Boy? Don't you think that's a little strange?
He's done that a couple of times now.
I know, but I think that's a little weird because when I think of that, I think of course, the Joker Goes to School, the episode when Susie calls, Dick when he's undercover at the chocolate shop or the malt shop, and she calls him Dickie Boy, and it's like, this is a little strange to me. I don't know why this is so uncomfortable.
See, I took that as a sign of like a shifting in the tone because they're goofing around, they're having fun, they're playing games at home. But when they're Batman and Robin, it's you're on the job. It's all serious.
Sure,
so I kind of got that. Like it was kind of nice to see Bruce Wayne cut loose a little bit and for Adam to have some fun. I kind of like that tone shift in it.
Why do you guys, and I know that you've addressed it, but we haven't, I haven't had a chance to talk about it, about the absence of Alfred. What's your take on that?
It would have cost Filmation another voice.
Yeah, but I mean, that never seemed to bother them in the past. That's the thing, is that I do miss seeing Alfred because, I don't know, I just do. But I also like, in watching these episodes, like they at least get to wear different outfits. Sometimes they always seem to be wearing matching outfits, which is a little strange. But they like they're willing to
like they coordinated that morning.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Dickie Boy, what are you wearing?
Right.
My ascot, of course.
Right. But at least they're wearing something different than in '68 they always wore the same outfits every single time.
Yeah. I think that would have been one more character to animate. I think it was just so. I think they're really cutting costs. So and I think you just wanted to get to Batman quick.
Yeah.
I also think that a lot of like what Alfred would have done, say, like we saw in the '68 cartoon, is being done by Batmite just in a more comedic way.
That's true. That's a really good point.
Good point.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Because he often is the exposition. He often will, help in a way. Yeah, right. That's a good point.
Speaking of helping, and Joe, you'll appreciate this. How is it Batmite never learns though? Because we get that great scene with Robin doing the tightrope walking, and as he comes back from where he's been, because he's going to the oil tanker to check the oil and stuff, and he's sliding along, Batmite suddenly appears, just like he did with the episode with Batgirl.
Yeah.
He's
Batmite is in your face.
Yes.
Batmite's only job is to get in your face. It's just like, sometimes I think of, like my dog's running around and, I'm just relaxed or something. And he just comes right up and licks your face. And you're like, oh, you're right there. Okay. And I think and even in the scene with Commissioner Gordon, he's right there and he wants to be heard. And, you want to know what I think. And it's just, it's like that little kid that's just constantly in your face and you're like, okay, all right, you're cool. I'll spend a little time with you. And as it turns out, he always saves the day. Seems like I don't know why he gets a bad rap. He's going to make you fall off a rope every now and again. Okay, but somebody's always there to save Batgirl or Robin, right? So,
yeah.
That was that, and he can always like materialize and help them too. He could, So I don't know. Maybe he's just goofing around. Maybe he's like Mr. Mixes-Pitalik in that way of just wanting to have fun or pop up and make pranks or something. I don't know.
I did like the tumble though. The as he comes off the rope, the animation for that. I thought that actually worked really well.
Yeah.
Goes back to his roots in the circus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of '66, there's something else too. Did anybody catch Bert using a similar?
Leaping lumbago. There must be an easier way to make a living. Well, here goes nothing.
Holy schizophrenia. If you're all these places at the same time, You sure are spreading yourself pretty thin.
Notice the pattern. They all seem to be moving in to the center.
44th between 5th and 6th. Leaping Lumbago! The Diamond Exchange!
Yeah, the one, it's even on the soundtrack album. It's, Leaping Lumbago. It's like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Do you remember?
That's my favorite one from this episode.
Do you remember the episode of Batman it's from?
Is it the first Penguin episode?
You're close. It's
first
the
first Mr. Freeze episode.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Yep.
I knew it was early
trivia.
on. Yeah. Leaping Lumbago.
Did you also, I don't know why, Joe, because we've talked about this too, how the music is, in many ways, is really good. And there are moments that Filmation slips in the stock music as well. Mm-hmm. I thought this time they abused it a bit much. They went overboard with the Star Trek Filmation music and the stuff from Shazam.
Yeah, the Shazam stuff jumped right out at me automatically. And again, we're the people putting this podcast together are obsessed with these shows, and we listen to this all the time. So if you haven't seen these shows that much, it might not bother you. But when we hear this music over and over again, it immediately jumps out that I'm like, oh, that's Shazam. Yeah. It's, again, I think with Filmation, the warning is clearly on the package. Look, there's a scene where Batman's gloves are yellow, right? I mean, it's Filmation. We get it's even been spoofed on, I think, Batman Brave and the Bold with the reverse R's and everything.
Batman Strange
Escapes. They're going to cut corners. And I always default to the fact that they kept jobs here in the States as long as they could. They kept those animation jobs here. They didn't have to farm a lot of this stuff out overseas. So I kind of appreciate that they were always looking to keep work here. But my goodness, did they cut corners to do it?
Oh, I'm always pleased whenever I see something get screwed up. In fact, there was, I don't think it was in this episode, but it was in another episode that I had on in the background the other day, and they actually had Robin's logo correct. It was actually yellow on black. I'm like, wow, by mistake, they got it right. Which I to this day, I still don't know why they made it yellow on black on yellow. I still don't know why they did that, made that change. It's still weird to me. But it's, again, like you say, it's Filmation, so it's okay.
It's so Filmation.
Yeah, I mean, there's even in this one, there's the you see Batgirl's got a yellow cape at one point. And of course, yellow cape is fine because she had half a yellow cape on the 66 TV show. Yeah. And the outfit lends itself to a yellow cape if she wanted to wear one. But nevertheless, it's just the fact that it's different, the fact that it's weird. You see Batman's logo flipped back and forth between yellow on black and black on yellow, and that stuff is great sport.
There's a charm to it.
Yeah. Speaking of like those little things and stuff, I thought for a moment there was also a bit of lazy animation, but I fell for the trap that Batman didn't when he, because they split up and Batman sees Catwoman and Clayface and, he springs up to them and lands. And I said, oh my God, they've gotten so lazy. They've got these really badly drawn versions of the two of them, not realizing they're cardboard cutouts that fall away. I fell for it.
The same thing. There's an episode of Filmation Superman that I don't know if you're familiar with it, called The Iron Eater, which is Superman goes up against this alien who is, as his name would suggest, eats iron, but he's also a shapeshifter. And the kicker is that the animation of the Iron Eater is the most rudimentary animation I've ever seen in any Filmation. It's basically a stick drawing. And when I saw this, I thought, "Oh my God, it's like watching the Iron Eater all over again." And then I realized that I was fooled also. I was like, "Oh, okay, well that makes sense then. Good on them."
Yeah.
I love that Batman falls for it too, though. The world's greatest detective. Yeah, falls for the old Blazing Saddles trick.
That's great. What a great reference.
I can't let you go, Dan, without talking briefly, because we always did this with 68 and the wonderful possibilities of toys we could have gotten, because we get both the Bat Cycle and the Batgirl Cycle, which kind of look exactly the same.
Yeah, they're pretty much the same thing, I think.
We also get Catwoman's car and her sub with detachable plane.
The kitty sub.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like the kitty car. I like the one from '68 a lot. This one reminds me a little bit more of the one from the '66 live action show, the third season with Eartha Kitt.
Yep.
With the tail and everything. But I dig it. I think it's really cool, and I like the way that the tail is used to create havoc when she's driving down the street, and so to bashing things left and right to keep the.
She doesn't
Batman
like
Robin.
tailgaters.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Very good. But I also, going back to the outfits for a second, I would have loved a Mego Catwoman in that outfit. Oh. And I think it would have been great. Yeah. I know that, Figures Toy Company has announced it, but they still haven't produced any Filmation characters. But I would hope that one day they would do the Filmation Catwoman of this version.
Yeah, what's the latest on that? Weren't they supposed to come out with a few of these?
They've shown Batman and the Joker. That both based on the 77. Well, the Joker's the same, so.
Right.
But the 77 version of Batman, which is slightly different than the 68 version, it's mostly in the chest emblem. They showed off the Riddler, which you only see in the credits. He doesn't appear on the
costume,
show.
right?
And, yeah, right, exactly. But beyond that, I haven't heard a thing since. And that does sometimes happen. They'll announce things, and maybe you'll see them, and maybe it'll take a year or two. So.
What a toy line for this, though, it would have made. Yeah. I mean, you got the cat plane, the kitty sub, the car, all the – I mean, like you mentioned the Migos. We had the Batcave and we had, all that. This could have been what could have been – well, we'll see if they come out. I just want a Batmite figure. Because all he wants to do is help.
Even having a Clayface figure would have been fun, especially with the way Mego would have done it, which would have been done like in a really bizarre, cheap way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Like you could have had an all plastic figure, but they would have done a spandex.
Right. Right.
Like,
exactly.
Didn't they do Tarzan? Tarzan had like a full body spandex.
Exactly. Right. Yes, it's exactly it. Like he'd have this big lumpy head, and then he'd have the spandex gray outfit with like drawings of lumpiness on it. That's what
it'd be the Thing body. They'd use the Thing. They probably use the Thing body.
The Hulk. Right. Exactly.
The Hulk.
Exactly. Right.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd love to see
what about the voice? What about the voiceover too? Did this one? I know that if you Google a little bit, I think it may be on Wikipedia. I'm not sure, but I think Larry Storch gets credit. But it's another one of those things where I think people, thought, Sweet Tooth was Paul Lynde at Fold Me. I know we've talked about this. And it was only, I think Larry Storch does get credit on somewhere, not on IMDb, obviously. It's probably Lenny Weinrib doing Larry Storch, but is Boyd Baxter, the TV broadcaster. He just, it's such a cool character, and he's kind of like channeling Larry Storch, channeling James Cagney.
I assure you, Mr. Baxter, that the police department will be working around the clock to stop these oil hijackings.
My viewers are demanding action, Commissioner. Now, what are you going to do about this?
I've called Batman and Robin into the case. I'll keep you posted, Mr. Baxter.
Well, at the beginning, I thought it was, in the very beginning with the newscast, the first newscast, I thought it was Larry Storch. But as time went on, I'm like, no, that's Lenny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's so over the top.
Yeah, right. And it to me, he also sounded like at times that he was lapsing into doing Kennedy.
Yeah.
He seemed to be talking there, Batman, in Fenway Park, we're going to, over there, I was like, okay.
The Simpsons character understood the mayor Quimby.
I guess he moved from Boston to Gotham. It's possible.
But it's so great to hear him show up as these things because he is such a great mimic, and it's almost kind of like you could see Larry Storch doing that on the 66 series. Like if this were the episode, the live action episode, it probably would have been Larry Storch.
It certainly could.
And Paul Lynde probably would have been Sweet Tooth.
Oh, Paul Lynde would have been great. The great castings that never were on that show.
Right. But we get him in this kind of.
Right. Yes.
Are you warming up to it at all, Dan? Are you warming up to it?
Oh, I definitely have. No, I have, because that's why I said when I changed my mind, I was like, damn, I'm too late. I made a mistake. And I was like, but then when I heard you guys do it, I'm like, you guys will do it better than I would have, because I would get hung up on Batmite. But you guys put him in the proper context. And, here's the funny thing is that I'm not like, as an overall Batman fan, I'm not like Mr. Serious. Obviously, if I'm doing this stuff, I'm not like Mr. Serious Batman. Everything's got to be Frank Miller or whatever. I love my whimsy in my comics, but for some reason, when it comes to the cartoon sidekick, the animal sidekick or whatever, it just grates on me. And it grated on me when I was a child. So it's not like it's something that is as an adult. Because what I like about your philosophy, Joe, is that you want to look at these cartoons through the eyes of a child. Especially because these were written for children. These were not like what's done now with the Bruce Timm, what used to be done with the Bruce Timm universe and a lot of certainly not the animated movies that they make that are designed for all ages or even an older audience. These are written for kids. So there's a playfulness to them that I appreciate. I do like the fact that the animation is at times crisper than it is in 68, less of a reliance on stock footage. It seems more expansive. Gotham City seems more expansive. You don't just see sort of the rudimentary buildings in the background. There's some great, bird's eye shots down into the city that makes it look like it's a city that's lived in. Most of the episodes take place at night, so it has that Batman feel. So yeah, no, I certainly have come to appreciate it more than I did. And there are some, downright fun episodes here. Like, the Moon Man is a fun episode. And
yes.
There's some good, yeah. There's some good stuff here.
It is easy for me to see Batmite in that perspective because I am a guy sitting in a basement surrounded by toys. So
well, see, that's the thing. So am I. But but to me, I like that.
You lost your innocence. Now, right. Oh no, you never had it. That's right. You hated Batmite from the beginning.
Right from the beginning. That was it. I was like, what is this?
No, it's so cool. And even in this episode, because one thing John and I talk about is the fact that he's got the hots for Batgirl.
Yes.
Oh, I know.
Which to me is the most hilarious thing. And he gets to smooch her. He jumps on the front of the bike and gives her a smooch. But then she gives him a smooch at the end, and that's kind of cool. Right?
Yeah, she's like she humors him, I guess. She knows he's harmless, so she humors him.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing you'd see Yvonne Craig's version of Batgirl would have done that.
Yes. And again, he saves the day. He finds he's got a Batmite superpower. He can sniff oil.
Yes.
Right, there you go.
Like, he can find buildings full of oil. He can find a random oil painter with an easel on a cliff for no reason. Why? I don't know. That's the cool. John and I talk about this all the time. It's like, why does this happen? I don't know. We're overthinking it. It's there. It's just nuts.
Is.
I don't know what they were smoking when they put this together. It just is.
Exactly. I've always imagined them as sitting around like with their cigar chomping and with the sleeves rolled up and the smoking rooms and batting away at the typewriter and get, well, what is this? What is it you put in here in this script? What does it matter? The kids will love it. And then they just move on from it. Because I think that's what Bob Haney did for his entire comic book career was like, don't overthink it. Just enjoy it for what it is. And I think to myself, like, we're talking about like wacky stories. Like some people like the old, if you remember from reading Batman Family right around this period, the old Joker's daughter saga, such as it was with the Penguin's daughter and the Riddler's daughter and all of that. And of course, it's the most absurd, silly concept, but it's executed so well. It is so much fun that it doesn't matter. None of it matters. And that's the part of comics that you have to love, is that sometimes you want your really serious adult stories that you'd get in the Bronze Age or even later, but then you also get some really, really wacky stuff. And that to me is why the Bronze Age is great, because it still has the DNA of the Silver Age kind of lurking underneath, but it's not so far gone, as it got in the 80s and later where it became nihilistic.
Here's another interesting story that's in the news.
In the news, making good on a campaign promise. Hoping to restore faith in public officials, President-elect Carter recently set up strict guidelines for his appointees. A code of ethics is in the news.
In the News is sponsored by Nabisco. You'll find quality in our corner.
Oh, hi, Big Fig here. No, that's not the Newton. Hit it, Hal. Ooey-dooey rich and chewy inside. That's right, take a bite. Golden flaky, tender cakey outside. Up, down, turn around. Big Newton case from Nabisco. Oh, you can't do the Newton if a Newton it's not. But if it's by Nabisco, a big Newton's what you got. Let's do the big Newton.
During the campaign, President-elect Jimmy Carter promised to restore people's faith in government by setting up strict rules of conduct for public officials to follow. True to his promise, Mr. Carter last week established such a code of ethics. Part of the code states that political appointees must make detailed reports of their finances and sell or place in trust businesses which could conflict with their government jobs. To comply with his own rules, Mr. Carter must turn over the family peanut business to a person, unknown as of yet, to sell or lease. Ever since Mr. Carter emerged as a political candidate, attention has been focused on his family peanut business, a good example of the conflict of interest issues officials frequently face. Peanuts are a high-risk crop. A farmer can have one good year and the next be wiped out completely because of a crop failure. Because of this, the government guarantees the peanut growers that it will buy all the peanuts they are unable to market. Many legislators want to change this law. If a bill is passed changing the guarantee, as president, Mr. Carter would either have to okay the bill or veto it. To avoid a conflict of interest such as this between his job as a peanut farmer and his job as president, Mr. Carter gave up his holdings in the peanut business. New guidelines for government officials are in the news.
Bat message.
Clayface and Catwoman made quite a team, Batman.
But a team that didn't know the score, Robin. Crime never pays.
Well, how do I look, guys?
Is that really you, Batmite?
In the flesh. I got a heavy day with that girl. She's gonna wonder where I've been all her life.
And wherever you've been, she'll probably be thankful.
What did you guys think of the Bat message on this one?
Yeah. An opportunity to talk about how teamwork, when it's done wrong, can always go wrong, but when it's done right, and using they totally miss it, and instead they just get a Batmite joke along with a weird syncing of Adam and Bert saying the line. That was weird.
It was one of the weakest segment of this series. The Bat messages. This may have been the weakest.
Yeah. But they're getting worse.
But Batmite does drop his pants, so
yeah,
right.
You can't.
All right, hey.
When all else fails,
right? Drop your pants.
Good drop your pants joke, right?
All he needed was a bottle of seltzer, and he would have been all set.
That's a nice Mary Tyler Moore reference.
Oh my God! Yeah, there you go. Ted Knight. There you go. We've established our connection between Filmation and Mary Tyler Moore. Yeah. Yes. A little song, a little dance. The other part I also appreciate the difference. And I like the 1968 Batcave with its kind of pop arty kind of sensibility. But I like this Batcave too. The way they expand it, it seems bigger. It's got more going for it. Yeah. And I also like when they show Wayne Manor at the top of the cliff, and you see the road below, but you see that there's the exit for the Batplane and the Batcopter, and then farther down is the exit for the Batmobile. I'm like, that's cool. That is really cool. I like that they do that. I like that they built that in. What's that?
It'd be a great playset.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
I want it.
Right. I know. I want it. I want that.
Anything else that either of you gentlemen wanted to touch on with this episode?
No, I'll give you guys last word because it's your show now. Damn it! But I really enjoyed it, and I was glad to be able to do this. I wanted to be able to come on once, just almost like a handing of the torch and a tip of the cowl to what you guys are doing with the series. It's certainly better than what I would have done, and so I like listening as a listener. 68 is always first in my heart, but I have a renewed appreciation for 77, not just because I've been watching them and having them on in the background, but because of what you guys are doing with the podcast. So I think you guys are doing a terrific job, and I look forward to listening to more. And I may not like Batmite, but I certainly have learned to appreciate the show more than I originally thought I would.
We'll get you there. We'll get you there. We have succeeded. We'll get him to love Batmite. He'll have a Batmite poster up in his basement. I like the episode. It's look. I love this Catwoman. I love Melanie Britt. I love the back and forth as she does Batgirl and Catwoman, and they're two totally different. You can never tell they're the same actress. I'm hoping we can get her on the show at some point. I'm trying. Working on it. But I love her voice in this. I love Adam and Bird in this, and it's another cool Batmite episode. And yeah, I'm good on this one.
I am good with it. My actually only real quibble, I think Clayface, for his introduction, like you said, he's more of a henchman than he is a partner with her. And I know we're going to get more of him. Also, one quick question. I could have sworn I read somewhere that his voice is going to change as we go through the series, because I thought he sounded like McGruff here. So
it's a little bit like McGruff. That's what I'm enjoying. It's this sort of remembering everything as we're watching these in real time too, as we're going through these, and it just kind of bringing it all back. So yeah, we're rediscovering this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had totally forgotten that Clayface was even on the show. So I was like, oh, that's right, Clayface is here. Awesome.
Nice surprise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, that's going to do it for this episode. But before we go, I'm going to turn it over to you two gentlemen and your corners of the comic book universe there, starting with my partner in crime in this episode, Joe Stuber. What's happening over at Comic Book Central?
Lots of stuff happening over at Comic Book Central. ComicBookCentral.net. Oh, man, we've had all the Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. have been on. That was cool. So I did a ton of those. I got to do some one-on-ones with the cast, but then I also got to sit in on a media event where we threw a bunch of questions at everybody. So I had the entire cast, all the showrunners were out there. Of course, Terrificon at home. We can't go to a convention right now, but I brought the convention to everybody. So some guests that were going to come on, the Justice Leaguers, Susan Eisenberg, George Newbern, and Maria Canals-Barrera. Wonder Woman, Superman, Hot Girl, they've all been out there. I'm working on a bunch of other stuff. There's a ton of anniversaries this year. Stay tuned, subscribe. There's all kinds of good stuff out there.
And you can find that at comicbookcentral.net. And, of course, on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and all those other...
Apple Podcasts, Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever the coolest podcasts can be found. That's where the Comic Book Central area is.
That's it. So from Joe's Lair to the Batcave, we've got it all covered here. And Dan, 13th Dimension.
Yes, 13th Dimension. Same comic books yesterday and today. But if you like these podcasts, if you like Joe's podcast, if you like John's podcasts, and whether I'm on them or not, I'll be magnanimous.
You're here in spirit all the time.
I'll be mad. Yes. I think that you're probably going to enjoy what we do over at 13th Dimension, whether it's interviews, whether it's various features or salutes. So if you're into that sort of thing, and obviously if you're into Batman, you're here, you might want to check that out. But other than that, it's we do what we do, and you can find us on the Twitter and on the Facebook, and we're very active in both places.
And
there's so many rabbit holes to go down on 13th Dimension. Once you get in there, it's like you're there for hours. You can't get out. It pulls you into the 13th Dimension.
Yeah, well, that's sort of how we came up with the name. Was we decided, it's funny, you decided to call your podcast Comic Book Central, but when I launched it with a friend of mine, we decided we weren't going to put comics in the name of the website, because what if we decided to expand it into something else? And we decided we wanted like some kind of a silly, like old school adventures in the X number dimension. So we basically just counted to see what was already claimed in terms of I know, talk about zero market research, and we got to see what names would be available. And 13th was available, and I thought that's a good one. 13 is a good number. I wish sometimes we were, since we do everything in increments of 13, though. I wish sometimes we were the 8th dimension. That would make my life a lot easier sometimes. So because 8 was available, we could have been the 8th dimension. But I'm glad we're 13th. I think it's a little bit better. But I appreciate what you said there, Joe. I really do.
And that's 13th Dimension, 13thdimension.com for everything there, if you want to check it out.
That is true.
So, Dan, thank you so much for coming in and doing this. I hope, that maybe even somewhere down the line, we might do this again with another episode. We've got a couple of other team ups coming up.
I actually want to thank you guys for having me on. It's very gracious of you to do it. I really appreciate it. I did have this itch I needed to scratch. If you want me back on another episode, if you can put up with my Batmite rage, I would be happy.
I'm not scratching anything. I'm not scratching anything.
I would be happy to come back, but like I was saying before, and to your listeners, I think you guys are doing a really bang up job with this, and certainly better than I would have done. So I really appreciated you, and you have opened my eyes to things in ways that I was being a little closed-minded about. So thank you.
Not bad for a guy who doesn't do any research, right, Dan?
Oh yeah, that was great. That was great. Your first pan. I don't know who that humorless person was, but it was. I couldn't help but laugh when I read that. Like we all have our moments.
Yep. 7 years of doing this, my first pan review on iTunes, I was thrilled.
Yeah.
Not that I'm looking for more, folks. Don't but
yeah, right, exactly. Don't line up or anything, but yeah, so there is something about there's a badge of honor about getting a bad review. It's something like someone just at least but usually you want them to at least be informed. This person was really not informed about I don't know what they were listening for, but the Batcave podcast is great. So anyway, I'm always proud to be on.
Well, thank you very much. Well, folks. Next time, Joe and I will be back with an episode called Bite Sized. And, I'm curious because it's, according to the description, Brainiac and Alien shrinks the dynamic duo. Is this our Brainiac? So stay tuned for that, folks. Stay tuned for all the great episodes coming down the line there. More with Jim Beard, more with Dan. We'll be back pretty soon. We got to sit down, Dan, and get some comic books reviewed.
Yeah, we have to get some comic books reviewed, and we also have to get caught up on Super Friends.
Yes,
we did just have the Filmation files on Teen Titans, which we noted during Teen Titans Week. So if you like the old Filmation, we moved on from Filmation 68 Batman, but we've been doing the Filmation Aquaman and Hawkman, and actually no, I don't think we've done Hawkman yet, but the other heroes we've been doing as well, and that's been a tremendous amount of fun. So I look forward to getting back on track.
Yes, sir, indeed. So, folks, once again, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, Joe, Dan, take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
See you, folks.